And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We're brought to you by our friends over at Kexi. Fellas, they are giving you a kindly reminder, and as the deadline approaches, it'll get less kindly. Valentine's Day is coming up. Yes, a completely, totally contrived scam. Nevertheless, expectations are upon thee. So, if you want to go outside the box, because she's going to enjoy what's inside the Valentine's Day box. See what I did there? With our friends over at Kexi, their box of chocolates in cookie form, Black Forest chocolate truffle, chocolate caramel, Dubai chocolate, red hot velvet, German chocolate. The perfect gift for every Valentine's. Just unwrap and enjoy. They start shipping around February 5th so that they arrive by Valentine's Day. So that deadline is approaching. Take advantage of it now. Go to Kexi.com. Their cookies are outstanding. Take it from me. I've had a few. Kexi. A few too many, probably. But I'll take a few more. I want my Valentine's Day box, Kexi. Get her done. Kexi.com. Kexi is where you can go. And then use the promo code Deace for 15% off. Kexi.com, promo code Deace for 15% off. All right, coming up on today's show, we teased this yesterday. So next hour, our colleague here at The Blaze, Keith Malinek over at the Pat Gray Show, I thought put out a fascinating poll. As we now embark on America's 250th birthday this year, how many more birthdays do you think we will celebrate together as one nation? So we're going to talk about that poll, look at the results, and we're going to give it the fake news or not treatment coming up in the next hour. Pop Culture Tuesday. One of the underrated movies of my teenage years was The Last Boy Scout. Do you remember it, Todd?
I do.
Yeah. And Bruce Willis is captured and tortured and does not demonstrate any flinching or pain whatsoever. And finally, his torturers, they say to him, I want to make you scream. Do you remember his classic response?
Play me some rap music.
Yeah, play me some rap music. Classic line. Classic line. All right. We're going to do that to Todd, all right, for Pop Culture Tuesday, because Todd is having a fit.
No.
Over a 2-hour or 2-minute and 24-minute trailer. He is losing his damn mind.
No.
All right. And we're going to let him explain himself.
Pointing out everybody else is losing their mind.
Okay. See, it's already begun. It has begun. All right. The He-Man trailer has touched a unique nerve with Mr. Erzin, and we want to know why.
Because I'm a grown man. So
we will discuss coming up on Pop Culture Tuesday here at the end of the show. Bottom of the hour. A state legislator from right here in our backyard in Iowa, Zach Dieken, has filed a bill to get rid of abortion once and for all by criminally punishing those who engage in it. And we'll get his rationale behind that and what kind of progress he thinks that bill will make coming up at the bottom of the hour. But let's begin this thing as we always do with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Somebody's Losing the Battle of Minneapolis. Here's the timeline of events as we discussed yesterday morning. President Trump posted this on Truth Social, quote, I'm sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the massive $20 billion plus welfare fraud that's taken place in Minnesota and is at least partially responsible for the violent organized protests going on in the street. Additionally, the DOJ and Congress are looking at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who left Somalia with nothing and is now reportedly worth more than $44 million. Time will tell all. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Later on in the morning, President Trump said this on Truth Social. Governor Tim Walz called me with a request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him, and that what we are looking for are any and all criminals they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that, and I will be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was going to Minnesota, and so am I. We have had such tremendous successes in Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana, and virtually every other place we have touched. And even in Minnesota, crime is way down. But both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. Finally, yesterday afternoon, President Trump posted this, quote, I just had a very good telephone conversation with Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis. Lots of progress is being made. Tom Homan will be meeting tomorrow in order to continue the discussion. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Then it was revealed yesterday afternoon as well. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino and some but not all of his forces in the Twin Cities are pulling out immediately. Bovino is being reassigned to his home sector in California. What's actually happening as it pertains to the White House and Minnesota is anyone's guess. What is not up for debate is that there is a very well-organized and a very sophisticated communication network happening in Minnesota. Independent journalist Cam Higbee infiltrated this organization in a Signal group chat over the weekend and exposed the methods that commie agitators are using in the Twin Cities in order to track, log, and disrupt Border Patrol and ICE enforcement operations in the North Star State. It's amidst this backdrop that retired Green Beret Eric Schwalm posted the following on X over the weekend, quote, "As a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations running counterinsurgency ops, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations, I've seen organized resistance up close. From Anbar to Helmand, the pattern is familiar. Spotters, cutouts, dead drops, and modern equivalents, disciplined communications, role specialization, and a willingness to absorb casualties while bleeding the stronger force slowly. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now isn't protest, it's low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who've clearly studied the playbook. Signal groups at 1,000 member cap per zone, dedicated roles, mobile chasers, plate checkers, logging vehicle data into shared databases, 24/7 dispatch nodes, vectoring assets, salute-style reporting, that's size, activity, location, unit, time, equipment, on suspected federal vehicles, daily chat rotations, and time deletions to frustrate forensic recovery, vetting processes for new joiners, mutual aid from sympathetic locals, teachers providing cover, possible police department tip-offs on license plate lookups, home-based coordination points, rapid escalation from observation to physical obstruction or worse. This isn't spontaneous outrage. This is C2, command and control, with redundancy, operation security, hygiene, and task organization that would make a special forces team sergeant nod in recognition. Replace ICE agents with occupying coalition forces, and the structure maps almost one-to-one to early-stage urban cells we hunted in the mid-2000s. The most sobering part? It's domestic. Funded, trained somewhere, and directed by people who live in the same country they're trying to paralyze law enforcement in. When your own citizens build and operate this level of parallel intelligence and rapid response network against federal officers, complete with doxing, vehicle pursuits, and harassment that's already turned lethal, you're no longer dealing with civil disobedience. You're facing a distributed resistance that's learned the lessons of successful insurgencies. Stay below the kinetic threshold most of the time, force overreaction when possible, maintain popular support through narrative, and never present a single center of gravity. I've spent years training partner forces to dismantle exactly this kind of apparatus. Now pieces of it are standing up in American cities, enabled by elements of local government and civil society. This should keep every thinking American awake at night. Not because I want escalation, but because history shows these things don't de-escalate on their own once the infrastructure exists and the cadre believe they're winning the information war. We either recognize what we're actually looking at, or we pretend it's still just activism until the structures harden and spread. Your call, America. But from where I sit, this isn't January 2026 politics anymore. It's phase one of something we've spent decades trying to keep off of our own soil. Again, that's a post from Eric Schwalm, a retired Green Beret, responding to the exposure of that Signal chat group that communists in the Twin Cities are using to, in a sophisticated way, dox, log, trace, and track members of federal law enforcement carrying out immigration operations. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you are struggling with chronic pain, it's probably because of too much inflammation in your joints, and that's where Relief Factor comes in. They are the drug-free supplement created, though, by doctors who can prescribe drugs. But they wanted to create something that was drug-free, therefore side effect-free, and would go after the inflammation. That's the root cause, not just treat the symptoms. That's something... It's Relief Factor. Now, no guarantee that it will work for you, but over the years, it's worked so well that over 1 million people have taken the 3-week quick start. They spent the $20 and put it to the test. 70% of them stick with the product long-term because of the results that they see. So why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in just a mere 3 weeks or less? When you go to relieffactor.com, again, head over there right now. That's relieffactor.com. Just $20 to find out at relieffactor.com. One little postscript to Aaron's Montage. So this is making the rounds here today. And it broke late because it was on Minneapolis Public Radio, which means almost nobody saw or heard it. All right. But late last evening, Governor Walz did give an interview. He said that Susie Wiles called him in response to his request for the call several days ago. And and that he asked for the number of ICE agents to be reduced because the situation was not sustainable, that President Trump agreed, and that he also requested state investigators be included in the investigations into the two activists who decided to commit murder or suicide by ICE agent, and that Trump said he would consider it. All right. So that's making the rounds now, as of now, but it was an interview that was given late last night. The president is in Iowa today. He's going to speak on economic and energy matters. We'll see if this topic comes up or not. All right. But as we still have a developing story here, okay, I want to take actually a step back. And I think it's especially prudent in light of what Aaron just shared there from Eric Schwarm. Schwarm. I think it is prudent that we need to take a step back, gentlemen, and understand where we are. All right. And the enemy has a greatest hits album. There's nothing new under the sun, just new people under the sun that haven't heard it yet. And a lot of the lyrics are the same. In some eras, it's a concerto. In some eras, it's a drum beat. In some eras, it's auto-tune. In some eras, it's a chant or a mantra. In some eras, it's a rap song. In some eras, it's a folk song. But the fundamentals are the same. It gets remixed, but it's the fundamental tune. And I think that we are at an inflection point right now, or at least we should consider we are at one. And the kind of inflection point that will shape from this time forward what we will talk about the rest of the year and the way that we will talk about it. Let me give you some potential signs of the times. Minneapolis is this unique place where we just can't enforce the law here. There is a novel coronavirus. It looks like something we haven't seen before. Jacob Frey and Tim Walz being anointed by the left media and the Trump administration as essentially alternative proxies and voices. And the president did that by having a call with Governor Walz yesterday, whom he should have arrested by now. By having a call with him yesterday, he has legitimized him. Regardless of whether Mr. Walz can be trusted about the contents of that call, and raise your hand here in this studio if you trust Tim Walz's account of virtually anything.
No.
Nevertheless, though, the president himself is saying such a call happened. The president himself, and in his own descriptions, gave very conciliatory tones, especially by Trump standards, for the conversations he had with both Mayor Frey and Governor Walz. True?
Yeah.
He has legitimized them, therefore, as alternative voices in this controversy. Just like Fauci and Birx were legitimized. And now what does Tim Walz do? Runs over to Minneapolis Public Radio to have his own independent messaging and account of the call. How many times do we see Fauci and Birx do this? Just run to friendly media to come off the top rope of every time it looked like Trump might get his balls back during COVID. How many times do we see this? The most blatant is when I had it on very good authority, and I was not alone, that Trump was going to use that Easter Sunday to say, all right, man, the 15 days to flatten the curve, I think we can handle this. We'll moderately reopen. We'll keep the places on the two coasts that are now with overrun ERs. In Detroit, Henry Ford Hospital had an overrun ER at that time. But we can't sustain this, right? I remember going to church, and I was on cloud nine thinking, all right, we figured this thing out. I get out of church, and Fauci and Birx had been all over the Sunday morning shows, essentially preempting Trump on that.
I remember that phone call I had with you that day as much as any phone call I've ever had with you.
And I told you, I said, hunker down now. Now, to quote Star Trek II, we've entered the Mutara Nebula. Now we're in a place now that we're not in control. All right, our instruments don't work. Whatever happens next is unscripted. What happened next? Well, suicide by ICE. This is the new You just want to kill grandma. How many more of these activists have to die before you'll finally pull back? How many more of our elderly, of course, by the same people who said nothing as Governor Cuomo was killing their elderly in New York? One of, how many governors was it? Was it 6, I think it was? Whitmer, another one. Then you have the corporate media playbook. You must leave, or you risk your presidency, for this is only going to get worse. It will only get worse if you don't. You must leave. That is the new, you must lock down, or it will only get worse. It will only get worse if you don't. Then you have the respectable voices on the right claiming we can't withstand the pressure. We have to lock down. The blood will be on our hands. We'll just do it for a little bit. Be reasonable. You can't have that blood on your hands, Mr. President. Listen and trust the experts. Now, we don't have as many reasonable voices on our side as we did back then. In fact, most of the prominent voices on our side are basically bravehearting this thing. They're on a horse going up and down the the line saying, hold! Okay? But there's a few. You can always count on the Wall Street Journal editorial page at a moment like this to give you such a message. That's the same thing that was said about lockdowns. We have to lock down, Mr. President. We can't. I mean, the experts are telling us there's going to be 2 million dead. We can't have that. You have to shut down, sir. You have to be reasonable. Leaving Minneapolis, that's Trump buckling. And what happened after Trump buckled on 30 days to slow the spread and let that happen? What happened? His presidency ended that day. His control over his own government ended that day. His ability to control the narrative and get ahead of it ended that day. And now this had been decentralized to all these blue state and blue city state. I mean, the amount of time you wore a mask in Dallas compared to Arlington and the suburbs, for example, that played out in how many blue cities all over the country? Well into 2021, it was still going on. Long after Trump was gone and they took the presidency, stole it from him. Leaving Minneapolis will mean, in fact, let me just quote a good buddy of mine, because I saw him post this last night. And I shared it before I went to bed. This is from Andrew Colvett, Charlie's producer, who has taken the mantle of hosting his show. You either shut down the Minneapolis mayhem, continue mass deportations and mass arrest agitators, or you will embolden an even more virulent, malignant reaction in Los Angeles, Portland, and New York when the spring and summer months come. That is exactly correct. That is exactly correct. You saw this play out when he buckled on 30 days and let them implement that. They, of course, can't enforce that themselves. Trump's not going to send out the U.S. Army to enforce that. So who's enforcing that? Your governors, your mayors. And the way that you were treated in every blue state and city was diametrically different than you were treated in almost every red state or city, particularly as time went on. He had lost control of the narrative. He had given up control. I believe it is potentially the same moment we're facing right now. The names are different, but the plot is the same. The MacGuffins are different. The action pieces, the set pieces are different. So the script is different, but the plot is the same. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
My instinctual read on this situation is exactly the same thing as yours. However, I think it's necessary to maybe view this from the other opposite opposing perspective. What message does it send to the communist street orcs when literally less than 24 hours after Walz, one of their leaders, one of their icons, was comparing ICE, Border Patrol, the administration to the SS, to the Gestapo. Less than 24 hours later, he's now saying, actually, I called them and I made some requests. I'm collaborating with the SS now. And then last night in the Twin Cities, both the state police and, as I understand, a more wealthy Republican suburb, police from that suburb went and actually quelled rioters outside of a Border Patrol ICE hotel. I think that's something we have to consider.
I agree.
However, the way this is being messaged, especially with Bovino leaving immediately, taking some of his force with him, how much, I don't know. How much that's been overplayed, I don't know. I've seen reports that he's been stripped of his title of commander. I've seen reports that President Trump didn't even know he was leaving Minneapolis. I don't know. This is fog of war stuff.
I agree.
The way this is being messaged is that this is a capitulation. Now, they're trying to spin it the other way, that Walz is capitulating, kind of like I just articulated, and those are true things. I mean, Walz does, both Walz and Trump admit that a call happened. Walz even says, I was the one, whether it was 2 weeks ago or whether it was yesterday, I was the one who instigated this. That's a matter of fact now. But the way that this is being messaged to the base is just utter defeat.
I agree on all fronts. That's why I said this is a still developing story. Most of this audience, the biggest audience we have is the podcast audience. They're not going to hear this in real time. We have no idea where this story is going to develop. We have no idea what Trump will say when he comes to Iowa this afternoon. We just don't know. That's why I wanted to take a step back, because I agree. I don't know what the outcome of all this is. All right. And we all stipulated just a few minutes ago, none of us trust Tim Walz's account of virtually anything. Oh, right.
One thing we need to also consider here, and it's something you mentioned in passing, the timing of the Chamber of Commerce letter and all of those massive corporations
we talked
who
about
didn't
that
say,
yesterday.
hey, we stand in solidarity. They said, and I quote, as best as I can, we are calling on both state and local leaders to collaborate or to solve this problem with the federal government.
So there are pressure points on the other side, and we mentioned that in passing yesterday, so thank you for resetting that. Because there are pressures on the other side, Todd, that did not exist 5 years ago. All right. Everybody's not putting up George Floyd. Even our own local Hy-Vee down the street here was literally, painting the George, please don't ransack and loot our Des Moines store. No one's doing that this time. Right. So the idea that there's no pressure points on their side at all is not true. OK, so there are some leverage factors there for Trump. All I am saying is, if you're going to adequately, I'm willing. You notice I didn't post about removing the guy, the ICE commander. I've not said anything because I want to watch it play out. I want to see what the results are. All I'm saying is let's take a step back and understand on our side here what their game plan is. All right, we've seen this before. This is the moment with the Leonardo DiCaprio gif, all right, where he's got the beer and the cigarette on the couch. He's like, I know this one. All right, that's all I'm doing. I don't know how this will play out. I don't know where this story will be at dinner time tonight. I don't know where it will be when we come back on the air tomorrow, how we'll feel about it. All I know is this, all right? To some degree, Trump has legitimized Walz and Frey, who he should have already arrested. We all agree on that?
Yes.
To some degree, all right? Now, we don't know what the outcome of this will be, all right? And I don't trust Tim Walz's account at all. All I'm saying is let's all take a step back and cut through that fog of war by understanding where we really are here and what they are intending to do and what we cannot do in response like we did about this time 6 years ago. That's all.
The fact that we have more leverage now than then makes it all the more inexcusable that we would concede in the face of this. You can't art of the deal this. This is obviously willful evil on your soil. It's one thing to art of the deal somebody in a foreign land where you ultimately only have so much influence. To not, when you do have the leverage that Steve is rightly pointing out, ultimately act on it and shred this thing once and for all and expose all of the darkness behind what that ex-Green Beret is pointing out, what has been documented by Cam Higbee, is unforgivable. Steve, when I read your post this morning on X of what you just laid out for us and comparing this to COVID, I got a pit in my stomach that, if you'll remember, I felt that pit back in March. In early March, very early March, on March 4th of 2020, my father died. And I took time off, went back to Wisconsin to bury him. And it was a week after his funeral that all of this started going down. And I pleaded on camera, folks, do not fall for this. I saw it coming. And I have that same pit when I read what Steve talked about comparing this to COVID, because he's exactly right about this. There is an obvious playbook being enacted right in front of us, if you're paying attention in any way, shape, or form. But people just want to.
They even shut down a church. They even went in and shut a church down.
I know.
Come on, connect the dots, the signs of the times.
Why did this originate in China in 2020? To distract and cover up how much Trump's economic policies were hurting them.
Tim Walz
why was this activated
Tim Walz
now?
is fraud, yes.
Tim Walz is deeply connected to China. But everybody just wants to make the world flat. A Catholic woman who I've been close with for a long time, I haven't seen in a while, but she was just going full toxic empathy yesterday, and she's been a lifelong conservative, and I had to deal with her yesterday. Everybody is falling for it over again because we haven't addressed the fundamentals behind COVID, because we are just way too damn comfortable and we like it that way. And I've been trying to warn you about that over and over and over again. But John Daniel Davidson is right, and I'm trying to get him back on the show. But America is becoming evil because it is way too damn comfortable.
Let me also reiterate what I said yesterday. Everything you're going to hear me say for the time being, whether it's complimentary or critical, is for one purpose. I want to win. I want to win. All right. And we've always been, it's just the way I'm wired. You know, my brain works to connect dots of where things will go and what will happen next, not what is happening now. And so sometimes I'm really wrong and sometimes I'm really right. You know, I've been really wrong. I was really wrong on Trump, for example, initially. I was really right on COVID from the very beginning. So I've been really wrong. I've been really right. All right. And that's the danger when you are just wired, as I was by my creator, to be a forward thinker. And I just reflexively skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. So I could be way wrong, but because I don't want to be, I'm speaking up now. We need to understand where we are and what is happening here. At some point, we have to be willing to risk something on our side. At some point, there are things that are worthy of risking some kind of an L for. If you come to the table and are not, and you're always the one who is afraid of losing his money, you'll lose every negotiation and every leverage play every single time. Understand where you're doing the Catholic version of what Ali Stuckey and Meg Basham were doing on X for the last 3 days with Protestant evangelical women. All right. Understand where we are. The first sign of pushback, we've got to reprogram our own women. Their women are doing suicide by ice blockades in residential cul-de-sacs in the winter. And we can't even take a little pushback from somebody we'll never know on some social media platform. Understand where we are. We are ripe to be picked off like this again. And that's why I'm speaking up. I don't want to repeat this. I like cold civil wars better when my side wins. And I would love nothing more than 24, 48 hours from now, a week from now. My inbox is full of people calling me a panican. I will gleefully say I'll own it. But just in case, we have to get out ahead of this and see where we are and what playbook is being run.
The Steve Deace Show.
Well, this won't be the first time I just tee Todd up today. But Todd, Cove Pure. All right, tell us about it. I'll let you guys have the Cove Pure unit over there at the Erzen household, and they gave me one of those last year. Figured your family would be a way sterner test for it than ours. You know, we're basically empty nesters at this point. So, how's it done?
We keep trying to break it, and we can't. I don't know. Have you seen high school girls these days and these giant like thermoses that they walk around with all the time, filled with cold water?
Yeah.
Well, we don't. This water's so cold in there that they fill it up, and they don't even need to use ice cubes. I mean, it's just fantastic, because we used to run out of ice all the time in our house, especially in the summer. And then I just saw my youngest daughter make hot chocolate last night. I mean, it's easy. There's nothing remotely complicated about it. And like I said, we've tried. The Erzens have tried to break it, and we can't. It just keeps showing up to work day in and day out and making us happy.
It'll also break down about 99.9% of the contaminants there in your faucet water as well. So pure water, great tasting water as well. CoPure makes it so easy to get pure water with just the push of a button. So improve your health with clean water, not a huge setup. It looks just like a Keurig, as you can see right there. It kind of fits seamlessly right there on your counter as well. All right. Right now, get $200 off for a limited time when you use my link at Cove Pure, just like, a cove, like, underwater. CovePure.com/Steve, CovePure. CovePure.com/Steve. You'll get $200 off for a limited time at CovePure.com/Steve. So a lot of you know I just got back from D.C. With my man Seth Gruber. And there was a lot of discussion about from the various speakers there, a panel that I was on, about where we are going next as a pro-life movement. It is very clear that after the biggest win we had, the generational win we had hoped and prayed for 50 years, we have lost ground, and abortions are on the rise in America. So what can be done about this? All right, Zach Dieken is one of the legislators here in our state of Iowa. He's filed a bill with the intent to do something about it. So, Zach, it's a pleasure to have you with us, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good. I appreciate you guys. I'm a frequent flyer of the show, so I love what you guys put out, and it's an honor to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor to have you with us, my friend. Thank you for the kind words. We appreciate that. So tell us about your bill.
Yeah, appreciate the question, Steve. Really, really simple bill. It's like 2 pages long. I know legislators are used to reading bills that are thousands of pages long and really, really nuanced and complicated. This is just not complicated at all. It's 2.5 pages. It defines what is in the womb is a human being from fertilization, made in God's image, and deserves all the protections and due processes that anybody else would. It's just as simple as that. It defines what we all know to be true, that what is in the womb is human being, and we're going to protect it like we do everybody else.
What does protect it like we do everybody else? What does that entail?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question to ask. How I explain it to anybody down here, anybody that's co-sponsored our bill, which we had a record number of people to co-sponsor this year, thankfully. Total of 8 of us did. It just means that all of the laws that protect you and I, so if you and I outside of the womb were that baby, if something were to happen to us, we would have the same due process of law. We would have the same protections under the law, impartially, as everybody else would. And so if we were the baby, we would have all of that due process. We would have all of those laws protecting us. And if something happened to the baby, there would be sanctions and due process of law, just like there would be if any other life was taken. So I kind of steal I'm trying to get this right now, Steve, the phrase from Bradley Pierce out of Texas, who helped us write our bill. Killing anybody should be illegal for everybody.
So right now we have a dynamic, Zach, where if a woman is on the way to an abortion clinic and, or let's just, let's make it even more parochial. She's on her way to her mailbox to pick up one of the abortion drugs, one of the abortion pills from her mailbox. Her plan is to grab that pill from her mailbox with a baby bump, go into her home, take those pills, and self-abort.
Mm-hmm.
If while she is at the mailbox, a drunk driver comes down her street and pins her against the curb and kills her, he is on the hook for not one, but 2 lives that he's committed either at the very least vehicular manslaughter against, right? That's the current dynamic we have. Now if that never happens though, and she takes the abortion drug out of her mailbox and goes into her home and ingests it and self-aborts her baby into the toilet and flushes its remains into the septic system, no crime is committed there. That's the current dynamic, right? Okay. Another example would be if her boyfriend is bringing her an abortion pill for her, went and got it for her and brings it to her so that she can murder her child, he is not culpable in any way, shape, or form. If he violently assaults her, though, with the intent of causing the miscarriage himself, then he is, right? That's have I adequately described what the current legal dynamic is?
From what I understand, you're right, yeah.
All right. So what you want to do is you're trying to correct what is an obvious, well, maybe not so obvious, but would appear to be, maybe to me anyway, an obvious fallacy, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, our side has signed on to this fallacy for as long as I can remember. And since I'm older than you, for as long as you can remember. All right.
Yeah.
When you mentioned you've got a record number of legislators that have endorsed or signed on to co-endorse this year, which is 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like the 3rd year in a row that you've offered this bill in our legislature.
Yes, sir.
The first 2 years, how many people signed on?
I want to say the first year we did it, there was maybe 2 or 3, and all of this can be fact checked, so if I'm forgetting something and you have a listener who's like, that's not right, it was actually 4, I'm sorry, it was less than 8, but I want to say the first year it was maybe 2 or 3. The year after that we gained a couple, and then this year we have a total of 8 people who will put their name on the bill.
The people that you speak to who will not co-sign this but have demonstrated that they are committed to being pro-life and have a very solid pro-life voting record, when they say they won't co-sponsor or sign on, what do they tell you?
To be honest, Steve, kind of like you said, you've been doing this for longer than me. I think it's kind of the same thing that everybody has heard. I think there's an apprehension or a hesitation to criminalize it. And so if I would actually also add to your statement just a little bit, because I think you're saying something that's really important. The bill puts sanctions on everybody. The bill criminalizes everybody. I'd have to reread the bill, but I don't even think it mentions woman in it. And so if I hire somebody to kill you, the person who killed you and me are going to be held criminally liable. Mm-hmm. And so it criminalizes everybody, not just one person. And so I think the hesitation is just that we have become so accustomed to focusing, and I mean this respectfully, of course, but we've come so accustomed to focusing only on one person that the hesitation is never criminalizing the boyfriend like Texas did in 2025. I point you to an article about a boyfriend doing exactly what you described, and Texas charged him with a crime. The problem is never punishing doctors or pill providers or anybody else. It just seems to just be the final hurdle seems to be punishing and bringing criminal sanctions against the mother.
Well, because they vote.
Right.
And there's a lot more of those than all the other groups of people that are more inclined to vote on this issue than all the other groups of people you did. And you are a politician. I mean, you're in the legislature. You have to be aware of political considerations and calculations to some degree. I mean, after all, if you didn't win enough votes yourself, you could have all the thoughts on this matter you want. It would just be a blog, right? So, I mean, the possibility that this is going to be debated as a law in our home state is because you made the right political calculations to get elected. So we all agree there's some political calculation here, right? We all agree, okay? And so when you are confronted with those political calculations, that we will, pardon the pun, get murdered if we do this politically. And I said this at Seth's event last week. Based on the best proprietary data I've seen, I think at least 30% of Republican women aren't really pro-life really at all. Okay.
Sure. And
so that's even before we get into the overall gen pop then, right? And so when you're confronted with that, when people say to you, hey, I have 100% pro-life voting record, but and I don't even disagree with where this ultimately needs to go is exactly what you're saying. But to do so right now is political suicide. Okay. And so you got to go out. I did a fundraiser for you, so I know you're aware of political calculations and that romance without finance and newsstands. You needed to raise money. You got to knock on doors, right? So you're aware of political calculations. So when you're given those and those are thrown back at you by your fellow pro-lifers as to why they won't support this, what's your counter to that?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think everybody's going to answer it differently. I think one of the things that I try to really lead with is people automatically think that I'm questioning their faith or their commitment to Christ, or these people think that I'm calling them they think that I'm calling them pro-abortion. I just think that they're being inconsistent with their convictions, if I could say that respectfully. And so I really do just try to lead with the idea that, one, the vast majority of the individuals that I have run into that are anti-abortion are Christians. And so I just appeal to what they believe. I think that the Lord is honored by this bill. I think it's a righteous bill. I don't think that there's anywhere further to go. I don't think that there's any other increments or regulations that we can put forward. I'm not somebody that is pro-increment personally, but I challenge people to think that there really isn't anywhere else for us to go. And you mentioned earlier, thankfully, Roe versus Wade has been overturned. That abomination of a court opinion is gone, and so this is it. This is it for us. If we want to treat individuals like individuals, whether they're in the womb or not, then this is how we need to go forward. And I haven't looked necessarily at the polling data or the political data, and so I trust your opinion on that. I think
I'm not giving you an opinion, my own. I'm giving you their opinion and letting you respond to what I assume they're saying to you as to why they won't support it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. I would say that
by the way, my opinion is we all get called the worst people of all time, no matter what we do. So we might as well just actually do what we claim we believe. That's my opinion. Yeah. All right. Whether we're talking about Minneapolis, Trump is literally Hitler, whether he caves or not. So why cave? You might as well go ahead and teach people what law and order really means. We just all want to have teenage moms like my mom was bleed out via coat hanger in an alley, no matter what bills we do or don't pass. That's the messaging of the other side. So my position is if that's what they're going to do, no matter what we say, then why do we care what they say? But anyway,
I think I've actually started using that too. Because didn't you say that recently on one of your shows?
Yeah, I've said something along those lines too. I mean, it doesn't do any good to get all the blowback and none of the benefit for what you actually claim to believe. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've said a variation of that. Sorry, Steve, I don't quote you, but I've said a variation of that. And I think ultimately, one of the things that I would appeal to lastly is other than these people being Christians and asking them to be biblically consistent and honor God with our laws, is that I don't know what you think, but I think the tide is turning. I think the younger generation, my generation, are waking up to these truths.
I agree.
And they're just not content anymore.
I agree.
With being told, well, we believe that what is in the womb is human being and it's made in the image of God, but we're not going to treat it like that. I don't think that sentiment is winning anymore.
When's the funnel date in Iowa? It's usually right around the early February, right? So there's a little bit of time, right?
Yep, 2 weeks.
So you could file a bill. I've got about 2 minutes here. Okay. Can I suggest you file the following bill? All right.
Yeah.
You want to make it criminally punishable in the state of Iowa to hire a hitman to murder your unborn child. I would file that bill. I'm dead serious. I would file the bill. You cannot hire a hitman. You cannot put a hit out on your unborn child. And that unborn child, if you do, so if you have your boyfriend beat you up, throw you around, so you have a miscarriage, blah, 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 blah. Okay. If, take a step towards calling out a false objection here. All right. I would file a bill. It's against the law to hire someone to kill my unborn child for me. It's against the law to hire them to do that, to put a hit out on my kid.
Unfortunately, Steve, I actually think that the first deadline is passed. And so while that idea maybe comes to mind just a few days too late, because I think last Friday was the last time.
Get a jump on this for next year. And people want incrementalism, give them some incrementalism, Zach. That's what I would do. I'd give them what they asked. I mean, say, okay, all right, well, let's take an incremental step. Can you hire a hitman to kill my kid? Can I do that? So let's make that, let's say that's against the law then, right? So.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, brother. Good to see you. God bless you.
Yeah. Thanks for you guys having me on and doing what you do. Like I said, I'm a frequent flyer of your guys' show, so keep up the good work.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. What do you guys think?
Well, there's no use talking about fortifying red states. And I'm sure in general, that's a conversation that everybody very quickly up in the Iowa legislature would sign up for. And then have all the same old excuses that the right has always had, the same compromises on that's too far, that seems too judgy, that seems to put the onus too much on a woman who's probably a victim too. All those excuses always lead to more death. If you really want to fortify red states and don't want to become Minnesota, which is just like 2 hours north from here, it's time to kill those excuses instead of killing the kids.
At the very least, measures like this can have the effect of letting everybody know where everybody stands on the most crucial issue. Either we believe our talking points that this is the only issue of great import, life, or we don't. And measures like this can have a wonderful effect of revealing. Now, you might not like the answers. You might not like the answers at all that you get from your state elected representatives or other legislators, but at least you know where people stand, at the very least.
What I tried to do with Zach there is let both sides' arguments be presented. All right. So I do think if you're on Zach's side, you have to do a better job of having answers to the political calculations here. And I think if you're not on Zach's side, you need to do a better job of articulating to Zach then what's our next incremental step then? What's left to do that? We've overturned Roe. What is left? Okay. So time to come now and let us reason together. Hour 2 is next. All right, back here with Hour 2 here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. Don't forget that you can always let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. You can like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then, if you wouldn't mind, if you are a podcast listener, thank you. You are the biggest wind beneath our wings. So please show everybody else how much you love the show by leaving us a 5-star review. And literally tens of thousands of you have done that. We have on the various podcast platforms combined. Thank you so much for each and every one of those. You can also make sure to hit and thank you if you're going to add yours today. Thank you for that in advance. You can also make sure to hit subscribe, or on Apple iTunes these days, you click follow instead. And that's how you know for sure that every time we do a new episode, it is for sure right there in your podcast feed. And many more of you have done that. So we appreciate each and every one of those. And if you do that for us today as well, thank you. This part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Trust and Will. These are the conversations we never want to have. And especially now that, we Gen Xers are into our third acts. We now have to have these kinds of conversations with our parents and grandparents. Our boomer listeners are having these kinds of conversations now with their kids, right? Because I promise you, if you check again today, you will notice that the human death rate remains a very robust 100%. So we are all getting to our expiration date. Make sure you're prepared. Our friends at Trust and Will can help you to do that. Before we recommended them to you guys, we put them to the test with our own family. And Amy came back raving about using Trust and Will, how customizable it was, how simple and easy it was. All right, to make sure that your decisions for that day that we are all heading to that faithful day, that the decisions that are made once your day comes, once your number is called, the decisions that you want, what's best for you and your loved ones, and what you worked your entire life for is honored and fulfilled. Our friends at Trust and Will, they'll help you to do that with their easy-to-use website. You can even use their shared documents access feature so your loved ones know what you have planned for them in their futures in advance. Everything is state-specific, legally valid, and again, customized to your needs. So add some peace of mind to your future with Trust and Will. Go to that's the word and, trustandwill.com/Deace for 20% off. That's 20% off at trustandwill.com/Deace. 20% off at trustandwill.com/Deace. All right, coming up at the bottom of the hour, Todd will lose his damn mind, and we'll find out if it's legit or not with Pop Culture Tuesday. But first, we're going to find out if we've all lost our minds, all right, on fake news or not. I saw this poll over the weekend from our friend and colleague Keith Malinak over on the Pat Gray Show here on The Blaze. And he was doing this in response to all the division that is happening right now and the lines being drawn over Minneapolis. And Keith asked this question. In July, America is scheduled to celebrate her 250th birthday. How many birthdays will America end up celebrating together? All right, 300 or more, so we're going beyond 2075. 37% of his following voted for that. Between 250 and 275 total, 35% of his audience voted for that. By the way, that's the one I voted for, in case you guys wanted to know. 249. Meaning like, this is it. This is the big one, Alice. All right. 18% of his audience voted for that. And 11% between 276 and 299. So they at least thought we were in some form of terminal generation. Let's discuss three facets of this poll from a fake news or not standpoint. All right. Let's talk about the question in and of itself. Is the question in and of itself fake news or not?
I don't know how we could think it was fake news after the conversation we just had.
Meaning that this is on the table to be discussed at the very least. Yeah. What were you going to say, Aaron? Go ahead.
Yeah. Given the conversation we had last hour at the top of the show, this is probably the most relevant question.
As an analog to that question, and I think this is how I replied to Keith originally, now that I think about it. Could it be said that before we contemplate how many more birthdays we have left to share together, we should ask how long it's been since we've actually had one? When was the last time you felt like we shared a birthday together as a country?
Define we.
Well, see?
Define America.
See?
Define American.
Yeah. Like, I think those of us in the, I used to divide it as the left America and what's left of America. I think the left of America, we've been sharing birthdays all this time. Right? But, I mean, if you've got somewhat left-leaning family members and friends, particularly if they are, blue-collar like union people, they're still lighting off fireworks with you and grilling out. But that's a dwindling population. And frankly, more and more of the private labor union people are becoming more and more Republican in the Trump era anyway. I mean, for goodness sakes, Trump got the Teamsters endorsement in the last election, If you have friends or family members in a public sector unions, that's AFSCME, that's the Government Employees Union, that's the teachers unions, How many of those friends and family members do you think you're lighting off fireworks with and grilling out with across the country? I'm asking.
Well, I've been...
And when was the last time you thought you could?
I am now, in my 11th year with you.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I was 12 years at the Des Moines Register. And from the time I got there, so, we're going back 25 years now to when I started there. What you're talking about was plain and obvious. There were just people who, if they hadn't flat out stated that they're enemies of America, that they were above America. They were better than America. And that's something that is not sustainable. It is the problem we have with America right now, and why this is such an important question is the exact same problem as we have with college football. It is utterly unsustainable. Most people know that, but there's so many different versions of jingoism that simply cannot be contained for all kinds of reasons. So we just won't get to the fundamentals of the problem. And if you won't have this is a football conversation at some point, if enough people, God only knows this show is having that conversation over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But there's way too many people who claim to believe the things that we believe in, but ultimately they've got idols that when it really comes down to it, they would just rather polish.
If we are talking about America, the economic zone, I would have voted for 300 or more, 400 or more birthdays together. If we're talking about America as in the nation that our forefathers, our founding fathers, I should say, founded, bled, died, sacrificed for. I've said this before, and I think it warrants saying it again. The very fact that we have the ability to be comfortable, the largesse to be comfortable, the excess to be comfortable, the abundance to be comfortable, even at this late hour, approaching 250 years, is all the more testament to the type of nation that they set up. And that generations of this country bled, fought, died for.
Mm-hmm.
It is a testament to that. Now, it's not a positive testament. All I'm saying that the fact that we haven't totally collapsed yet, which you could argue in some ways we have, and that I think morally, obviously, that's true. But it is a testament to just the strength of the country that they set up. So if we're talking about that America, you could make the case that it has already died, and we're just on the morphine drip and comfortably numb until we expire.
It's that strength you talk about, Aaron, though, that this is before COVID. I mean, I don't know how many years before COVID. You wrote the book, Steve. You wrote Nefarious. It got turned into a movie. This is what you're talking about. That initial strength scared the hell out of the devil. He thought, oh, this might be the thing. And then he realized that, no, that's the thing that ultimately I can weaponize and turn it on themselves. That prideful arrogance, that slouching towards Gomorrah, that let's just get comfortable because we are the people we've been waiting for. This is the book you wrote.
The thing about fallen human nature is that it's the degrees by which you become that which you hate. It doesn't take much. It just takes a little push. It's a thin line. There's a reason why the Bible refers to the way as a narrow road. Okay, there's a fine line between patriotism and hubristic jingoism. There's a fine line between, hey man, understand the legacy you're inheriting and what's expected of you, and show some pride in what your forefathers did to lay that, that down and pass that on to you, to the kind of complacent hubris. Well, this is just a birthright and it'll just happen to us automatically, right? For me, I'm a fiery guy, and it has led me to do things beyond what most people would expect of a kid born to a 15-year-old mom. But there's been times in my life I have not restrained it. And it's nearly destroyed me a time or two at the exact same time. All right. And so this is why we cannot do this without God. This is why we cannot sustain this MAGA moment without the church. We cannot. We are not capable of doing this as a species. We are sinners. We can't. We can't do this in our own steam. We can't. And if there was and if there was ever a time when we could least fake it, it would be now. You could argue the generations coming out of the revivals of the Reformation and everything else, you could argue the generations that founded the country could have faked it for a few generations, just on good old-fashioned, human will initiative. And yet they were the ones that were the most aware that they could not do it, because that just goes to show, again, how equipped they were for their moment in history.
Just remember everything you're talking about when we talk about what we're going to talk about in the next segment, because that's why I'm concerned.
I think we can't even fake it for a while. We can't. I mean, we are contemplating whether or not we are going to buckle to two politicians. Going back to my COVID analogy. By the end, we were all saying Fauci and Burke should have been put in prison. This time, we're all saying Frey and Walz should be arrested going in. We all know. And yet,
the lieutenant governor there has been caught red-handed running like
correct.
Black Ops.
So correct. We can't possibly fake this. We're just going to go through the motions and do this in our own steam. We're not capable. We're not equipped to do it. And the level of commitment that we are up against. Oh no, Trump's minus 20 with independence. I guess we got to cave to Minnesota. When every poll showed 55% or more of Americans wanted everybody deported, whether a criminal or not, their people ran down into cul-de-sacs to commit suicide by ICE. We cannot fake this. We can't. We're not capable of it. We're not capable of just doing this in a humanistic effort. I've been worried about us doing the French Revolution instead of the American Revolution. We couldn't even do the French Revolution. We couldn't even do that. We couldn't even do that. We couldn't. All right, let's talk about the results themselves. Put that back up there, and if you can, for just a second. What do you guys think of the results themselves from Keith's audience? What do you think? Fake news or not?
Not fake news. And I actually, I talked on the show about the pit I got in my stomach with your analogy to COVID. But this is actually encouraging to me. The fact that people have a level of understanding that people didn't just default to, mostly something above. I was worried that this was going to be 75% for EVs.
Oh, yeah.
I really was, because, folks, wake up. I don't know how long it's going to be.
You thought the results were his truth is marching on.
Yeah, because
that's what it was going to be. Yeah.
Don't do that. This is encouraging to me that you all understand that we are at a precipice here. Now, what we ultimately do about that, I'm sure that's where my concern would kick in, because most people have it's somebody else's problem besides me. But if we're talking about a birthday of a representative republic, look at the man in the mirror as much as you can for the answers to this question.
Yeah, we're talking mid 60 percentage points of people who believe that we're pretty much on our last legs. And that is in the midst of the vibe change, which we all experienced, we all saw, we all kind of felt on some level after 2024. But that's in the midst of all of this. I think for the reasons that Todd said, there is some heartening nature to this. What the reaction cannot be, though, is despair. We are never permitted despair.
Correct.
We are to be honest. We are to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. I hope this is not telegraphing a message or an inclination towards despair, because whether you're despairing or whether you're living for pleasure, living for comfort, you end up in the same place, just different excuses to get there, different vehicles to get there.
All right. Then point 3, how would you guys answer this? I already told you what my answer was. So, well, first of all, what'd you think of my answer? Is that the same answer you guys would give, or would you give a different answer?
If this were Holly Market or Kalshi or something like that,
yeah,
I think the best investment right now, because you could probably get plus money, would be one of the 2 middle options there: 2050 to 200, or 250 to 275, or 276 to 299.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably get that at plus money. And given what we're seeing right now, again, this is January 27th. Given what we see right now, perhaps the optics win for the communists in Minnesota. Again, that's a developing story, as we pointed out last hour. I think the smart money's on those 2 options. I mean, let's just follow. Let me flesh that out a little more. Follow this to its logical conclusion. Everything that everybody up to the vice president has been warning about with these midterms, let's say that comes to pass. There are basically no more wins for the Trump administration to be had. No lasting wins after that. It's a lame duck presidency the morning after the election in the midterms. If Democrats, wipe the field. I hope that doesn't happen, and we've had those conversations. What are you going to run on if you're the Republican nominee? What are you going to run on? If the economy isn't roaring by then, what you going to run on? So then we start talking about 2028. We start talking about trifectas, maybe, for the Democrats. That could be very well the end, like the end, especially after what we've seen just here in the first year and a half. The excuses that they're going to have to come after us even more than they thought up in their worst fevered dreams 5 years ago. So smart money right now is on those 2 middle options.
See, I find this challenging because I actually think the more our side wins politically, I think it's a bit counterintuitive, perhaps, but it becomes also more likely that we aren't celebrating a 50-state birthday. I think disunion comes from the left.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the left wins politically, it honestly makes it more likely that we're celebrating a 50-state birthday longer, because our side will have just given up. Our water will have found its level, weakness, comfort, anonymity. That's the problem I have with trying to think this through. We just are. John Daniel Davidson is governing this.
Well, we did an interview with him last year, and it blew my mind.
America won't just end; it'll become evil.
It's just like what's happened with Western Europe.
Yeah. So I think if we have wins, if we have the best version of Trump, if we have Vance, or just for the sake of argument, somebody where every bit is, rises to the polls at the degree he is right now, and is willing to take that over strongly for 8 years after that, the left that we're talking about, Minnesota, either we break it or it decides it doesn't want to be American anymore. So. And that's really, we keep our skepticism about, are we a people that really want to be American anymore? So I think I would have chosen the top one, while still acknowledging, I think I'm very pleased that there's just not a jingoistic America Forev's answer on this, because it means maybe people are more awake than I gave him credit for.
I like, Aaron, how you mentioned America as an economic zone, because it does tie into what John Daniel Davidson told us a year ago, and about his book, Pagan America. And I'd go back and find that podcast and listen to it. I mean, we have a lot of great guests on the show, and we always try to bring people on that maybe are to say things that we don't know, or don't understand, or say them differently. Otherwise, why give up the airtime? We can just do it ourselves, right? But every now and then someone will come on and will say something that just completely challenges my paradigm and blows my mind. And that was one of those that we did. And actually, no, it was in 24, I think, is when he wrote that book, wasn't it? I think it was in 24, not 25, I think. But America is an economic zone. So essentially, See, here's why what happens with all our guns? Right? We're more armed than the Canadian church. We're more armed than the British church. You see what I mean? Like they were all disarmed and then we're, well, disarmed. Okay? In our case, I mean, the American private gun owner in and of himself would be the largest standing army in the history of this world. Okay? So I don't know that we become just an economic zone. And here's the thing. I know what we all think about the overall state of masculinity and courage today. But when you're talking about 300 million guns in the private populace, it doesn't take a lot of, not all those people are punks. Not all of them are prissies. It doesn't take enough. It doesn't take much. You think 30% of them have some, are like over my dead body? Because I kind of think it's at least that number. I do. That's millions of people. I don't know that we become just an economic zone. Because that is a factor in the calculus that I hadn't thought of previously with John's math. That you do have to account for that did not exist in these other Western countries that just went evil, because there was no way the people could resist at the level that our people still can.
You cannot. That gun ownership can't wait until the 11th hour, though, to act. That's part of the psychology of it when I talk about Anon accounts. If it doesn't act sooner and put its cards on the table before the tanks start rolling out, because all those guns at some point become somewhat of a moot point if they're going against the full weaponry of modern arsenals. You got to flash that a little earlier than the 11th hour, and that's my concern. Is that everybody's got their own private Idahos, that mentality right now that allows the Tim Walzes of the world and those people, the people you're talking about. Why is lesbian mom in 0-degree temperatures strutting out there? It's because nobody's flashing that hardware earlier.
Or at least the hardware of a badge and some handcuffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to consider it is later than we had hoped. And I woke up this morning and I see another healthcare worker, this one at Virginia Commonwealth University, outed by Libs of TikTok, putting out all kinds of videos, telling women what to date Republican men and what poison to use on them. Yeah. Okay. Just putting these videos out. And I, if your education system is overrun by teachers cheering on the most viewed murder in America, in world history, and it's one of our generals. It's one of our generals, not just anybody. It's one of our generals. And let's say, I mean, healthcare is the biggest industry in America. Let's say 10%, really low number. 10% of healthcare workers are this crazed. Well, that's millions of people.
We know way more teachers than 10% are that crazed.
Or hundreds of thousands.
Yet all of those men with those guns that you're talking about, most of them, where do they send their kids to school? Do you think they're all homeschoolers, Steve?
No.
They are not. They're sending their kids
to be taught
to those schools.
Yeah.
Because how serious are we about the threat before us?
Collectively, we're not very serious.
No, we are not.
I agree with you, we're not. But I also think there's more than a few Clive and Bundys in that 300 million private guns.
Yeah.
There's more than a few. All right. And I don't like where any of this goes. I don't like this conversation at all. And it's why I let off the show with what I did. This is not a time for optimism or pessimism. This is a time for victory. Whatever information gets us to a win, whatever actionable information gets us to a win, we need it and therefore to act on it. We have to win. This is not a theoretical exercise. We are mainstreaming political nihilism. The devil responded with the most post-martyrdom inspiration we've seen in America in decades, with turning his own insurgents and acolytes into martyrs for his dominion. We have to win, folks. We have to win. And to win is going to require some things we haven't been willing to do or didn't think we ever would have to do, which is one of the reasons why I read Nehemiah 13 yesterday for the men. We have to win. I got to be honest, man. I saw Fox News had the pastor of that Minneapolis church on. I saw that clip in my feed last night, and I just got the instant reaction that I get every time I see Pam Bondi or Kash Patel on Fox. We don't need pastors doing, sorry you were victimized, grievance publicity tours, when this isn't Jack the cake baker being targeted in ways he has no control. By the way, Jack pushed back, which is why he kept going to the Supreme Court.
I didn't see that interview, but I bet the whole vibe was, we just want to be left alone. Is that Matthew 28? That's the exact opposite of Matthew 28. Matthew 28 is, we're not going to leave anybody alone.
No,
we are going to take the good, the true, and the beautiful to the ends of the earth. But everybody here on the right just wants to be left alone. Not going to work. It's a death sentence.
More and more of us are awake than ever before. I am encouraged by that. I am. But we're still far behind systemically. And, I want to believe Trump is just the first step. I think that's the intent. But, what happens to an offensive lineman, guys, when his first step is a false step? What happens? He's off balance from that time forward. Or if you're playing defense in basketball, you're playing man-to-man defense, your first step is you take the wrong first step. Where are you at defensively from that time forward? How about what your daughters do? They go out there on the track. If the first step is bad, what's the likelihood they're winning the rest of the race? Right? So,
what if your first step is He-Man?
Well, we'll find that out next, I guess, when we come back. Stay tuned.
The Steve Deace Show.
Well, you guys know I love my Miracle Made sheets, and if you try them, you're going to love them too, I promise you. Crafted with NASA-inspired silver-infused fabric that helps regulate your body temperature all night long. Hot sleeper, cold sleeper, doesn't matter. These sheets are going to keep you right in the comfort zone that you want for your best night's sleep. Only sheets I have slept on at my house since they came on board. Man, I think they came on board like in 22, 23. They've been with us for a while.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to go out and buy some more. Just figured we wore out the original ones they sent us. So we had to go buy some more. And if I'm going back to a partner and paying for more of it out of my own pocket, that's the absolute best endorsement I can give somebody. All right, by the way, that same silver technology, it's also very antibacterial. So those sheets stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than regular sheets as well. And they're ridiculously comfy. So upgrade your sleep, give the gift of a better rest by going to trymiracle.com/Deace. To try Miracle Made sheets today, you're going to save over 40% if you go there. Trymiracle.com/Deace. And if you use the promo code Deace, you're going to get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. That makes an amazing gift. And with a 30-day money-back guarantee, which you won't need, there's no risk. So just go to trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace, for the extra big savings and the free gift. Trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this week's Pop Culture Tuesday. Trymiracle.com/Deace, code Deace. All right. This is Pop Culture Tuesday, where we look at what the intersection between the things that we deem as conservatives to be revealed by history, his story, as good, true, and beautiful that we are attempting to conserve for this and future generations intersects with what is trending in popular culture. And the following 2 minutes and 21 seconds has Todd on tilt. But let's watch why first.
All that stuff that only exists in legends and bedtime stories. Talking tigers, spaceships, and magic swords that can make a man as mighty as a god. Where I come from, that stuff is real. Why did you send me away?
I wanted you to be safe. So I sent you to a place I knew that they'd never find you. There's...
This obsession with nerd stuff and sword things, it's not a good look for human resources.
I know it sounds crazy, but that sword is gonna show me the way home.
Sir, you can't do that.
Don't worry, the sword's mine.
Hang on, it's about to get weird.
What am I supposed to do? Take the sword. You protect them.
So that's based on one of the iconic after-school cartoons of the mid-'80s, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And there was a period of time there where this was, post-Star Wars in particular, pop culture gold. They tried to make a major motion picture with it in 1987. Dolph Lundgren was He-Man, and Frank Langella played Skeletor. Very young Courtney Cox is in that film, and the film just never really panned out. It's kind of got a bit of a cult following in the decades ever since. And then there's been numerous attempts to try to bring He-Man back. They've all kind of fizzled. All right. And so this movie version has been stopped and started several times over the years. It's finally being completed, and it comes out June the 5th. All right. So Todd, you have some serious concerns here, brother, and the floor now is yours.
Well, guess how many times I've seen that trailer?
Is that the first time you've actually seen it all the way through?
I haven't seen the trailer.
I have to tell you, I wasn't gonna. You made me watch the. I mean, your reaction is maybe I got to watch this now and see what the issue is.
My reaction was what. So I made some kind of toy lightsaber comment about this, and then the algorithm takes over, and you're introduced to a world of people our age, Steve, who are fanboying in tears. Oh, I've been waiting so long for my childhood to come alive like this. You guys can't and they're citing their age proudly. You guys can't possibly know if you're younger than me. So they're actually telling the younger people who are closer to childhood, move over. This is our moment. I'm 53, 54 years old. I'm serious. If all the stuff we talked about on this show before is not compatible with a bunch of grown men with this level of idolatry for childish things. It just isn't. This is idolatry. They commence to show their toy collections and their drawings, and this is. And if the country was healthy, I would sound like old man shaking his fist at a cloud. But the country's not healthy. We know it. We complain all the time about where are the men. This is what they're doing. It's not good enough. It's obviously not good enough. It's obsession. This is a biblical tale about we are meant to move on. And I mentioned last week, sometimes we're meant to be like children biblically, and sometimes we're meant to move away from it. This is when we're meant to move away from it. And we have all kinds of man boys in this culture who are deeply, deeply distracted by childish things. They don't have any intention about moving on from it. They're very proud of it. They're telling you this who they are, while they're simultaneously complaining about women. The gals aren't going to want this. They aren't. You can complain all you want about them not liking you. Why would they? Stop being obsessed with this stuff. Move on. Be a real man. I think this should be obvious by now. And like I said, I have there's nothing particularly germane about the trailer. The details of the trailer is about, are we really going to be men or aren't we?
The thing about the trailer itself is I had seen a bunch of stuff on our side about, well, He-Man's using pronouns. And then when I watched the trailer, I kind of took it as they were mocking it. And he's got this like insipid, who's the chick? Looks like she's constantly on Quaaludes, who's in Wicked. All right. With, she kind of looks a little bit like her. Okay. And she just, she like is the Longhouse incarnate. Okay. With insipid lecture. I kind of took it as it was, the dude's got to get out of this and, get to another world where, he can, embrace his full masculine legacy. That's kind of the way that I took it. But I guess when the movie comes out, that's when you find out for sure. But Aaron, what are your thoughts on this whole thing and what Todd had to say? My only frame of reference for He-Man is there's this old YouTube video with the animated He-Man, and he's doing a cover of, what is it, Four Non-Blondes, What's Up? That's my only frame of reference. And I said, hey, yeah. That song? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It looks like an adventurous movie. Basically, Todd doesn't have a particular... You set this up in segment 1, that this is, what did you call it? A peculiar nerve that's been struck with Todd. No, it's fraying an already frayed nerve with Todd, from what I'm hearing from him. It's just the latest toy lightsaber thing. It looks like another action adventure movie to me. Like I said, I have no frame of reference for any of this. Mm-hmm. Although the guy with the skeleton, is that Skeletor? Skeletor, yes. Okay, so I guess I do know more about this than I thought. Yeah. Played by franchise killer Jared Leto, I found out. Really? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't disagree with anything Todd just said. This is another iteration in the long line of conversations about comfort, idolatry, things that, escaping to live versus living to escape. This is, to some people, it sounds like, at least from what Todd saw, I didn't see this as well because I didn't get sucked into the algorithm. Just the latest example of, this is the latest, greatest thing in my life. It's going to change everything and make me pine for the old days. There's specific, what is it? I think it's in Ecclesiastes. There's a specific verse in Ecclesiastes about not wishing for the former days, and how that's unwise. Sounds like there's a lot of people who are just completely zonked out on nostalgia. Difference. So I've often said there's a difference between, or a distinction maybe, between nostalgia and tradition. And that tradition is when you hearken back to the foundations of your heritage and your belief system, and you have confidence because that tradition has been established, meaning that those things have stood the test of time. They are timeless. And that if you stand for them again in your time, they will, they'll undergird you too. They will be there to support you as well. It may look different. It may sound different. Okay. We have different, customs and personalities culturally in different eras, but the fundamentals are the same. Nostalgia is when we have to go back, not in the way that you hear often Todd say, all right, but we have to actually not go back in terms of rediscovering our values and legacy and heritage, but we have to go back in terms of how it feels and looks. Okay, that it has to have the aura, as Aaron's generation or the young kids like to say. We would maybe have called it a vibe, okay, in our time. All right, the vibe has to be the same. The aura has to be the same. It has to give me the same feels that it did before. Is what you just watched, Todd, and as a Catholic, obviously, tradition as a general rule has a special place in your heart. Is what you just watched tradition or nostalgia, do you think?
What's traditional about He-Man? As a 54-year-old man needs to rever. Absolutely nothing. You're supposed to be moved on from it. You're supposed to be. It's not supposed to titillate you in any way, shape, or form because you've moved on to greater goods. Why do we want to be perpetually children as men of this era? There's no good answers to that. None.
What if Aaron decided to take Ben to it this summer because he found out it was relatively family friendly and was overall fairly affirming of, masculinity and male leadership and initiative and told in a fantastical sense, which is the reasons that we watched it when we got home from school when we were kids 40 years ago, right? Would you have a different thought on that than 52-year-old men who have, who can't be, bothered to vote, but are literally, weeping online about a movie that doesn't come out for another 6 months?
Yes, I have a different opinion across the board for the things that are meant for children and the things that are meant for 54-year-old men. I absolutely have a different opinion about that.
Or even if you wanted to, maybe you enjoyed it as a kid and you want to go take your own kids or grandkids to see it, so they can share that kind of experience with you.
This is a child's movie. Mm-hmm. It's not a man's movie. Yeah, so by all means. But this is I'm going to say the same thing about Doomsday. I really thought because the more that Steve, you've long said if the Dark Knight would have, if it wasn't about a superhero, it would have won.
If it's a gritty cop played by Al Pacino and not in a cape and a cowl, it wins Best Picture.
Best Picture. Yeah. And a point underlying that is that the more they made these superhero movies speak to our condition, our real humanity, not fantastical, talk about us, mm-hmm. Well, then they should be in that conversation. You're absolutely right. Those things happened. Why I was entertained by those movies, why I would hold them, but I am not most people, they just want escape. They don't want real life. They don't transfer it into the real world. So my opinion is going to be the same basically about Doomsday. Obsessing about it as an adult and not being willing to live the life of consequence that comes out of those things, I just pity you. I really do.
Aaron, last thing on this. So Todd and I and maybe you were at the tail end of this, but somewhere on this show, the three of us represent the nexus of the last time it was just a given that escapist fiction was a morality tale. It was just a given. It was just a given that it was a vehicle in order to communicate deeper truth, speak to things that are innate. Otherwise, why could we possibly resonate with these fantastical cultures and futures if they didn't touch on things that are innate to the human condition, right? Okay. And so that's not necessarily taken for granted anymore. How do you manage that now with a son that you're trying to raise into a man? How do you manage that when it's just mindless, right? As compared to, is there a point to it? It's escape, but there's a point to it.
It's a whole lot of just waiting and seeing. We're not in a huge hurry to go out and consume the newest thing, the newest media. We're just not. We have a lot of old media.
Yeah.
We have a lot of DVDs.
Yep.
We have hard copies of things.
So from the era when these things were taken for granted.
Yeah. So we rely on the past quite a bit. We're not in a huge hurry. Now, if I hear good things about especially faith-based movies that want to support, and Ben is kind of at the age where he can kind of enjoy things in the theater, we will go to the theater. We've gone twice. Once was for the Charles Dickens one last Easter, and then we went to see the David movie together. Mm-hmm. We lasted about a half hour in the first one. We lasted through the whole thing on the second one. And then I asked him what his favorite part of the David movie was, and he said the Super Mario trailer before the movie actually started. So maybe we're going to pump the brakes on the next one. But we rely on the past quite a lot, and then waiting till things are out to see whether or not they're actually good, or letting other people be guinea pigs.
So this movie isn't being made for kids. It's a kid's movie. It's being made for adults.
Oh, I think that's very clear. Yeah.
And that's why our society is the way it is, because it likes to play in its diaper. And I'm sorry, we need to be citizens. We got real problems. And does anybody really want to argue with me that all these fanboys are doing their part as citizens? I'm sorry.
Well, and we'll have, I'm guessing, more of those problems to discuss when we come back again tomorrow. Noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.